Speedway and closer to downtown LA. David?
Chris, I think you said he started in East LA, and did he make a circle because he's now back in the East LA area?
He sure did. Yeah, it's exactly what he did. He did a circle, which indicates to me that he's not really clear on where he wants to go. There is some preliminary information that they may be in contact with the driver. I should stress, we don't know how many people are inside this vehicle, but apparently over the course of this pursuit, they've been able to gather enough information about the vehicle and about the driver. They have now been able to contact that driver, or somebody is in contact with that driver. It could be law enforcement, it could be a family member. In any event, just crossing over the LA River now as he continues towards downtown LA.
It's tricky here because as we push in on the driver, you can barely see him because of the tinted windows. And if you go further back, the windows are very tinted. So a lot of room in that vehicle and very dark tinting. So it's next to impossible to actually see inside that vehicle. Giovanna, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, you did say that this was initially, they were trying to stop him for speeding. That's correct?
That's the original one as far as we're aware. It's interesting to say also that his behavior, his driving behavior has changed dramatically since this started about maybe 25 minutes ago. Again, what started as a high-speed pursuit, refusing to pull over, now you can see only doing about 35 miles per hour and even stopping for some of these lights, which is something he was not doing as recently as just a few minutes ago, just blowing through stop signs and several lights. So something has caused him to slow down and think twice, but he's still not pulling over, which is, of course, a major concern here.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre when somebody's going 73 and a 30, then runs from the CHP, but then suddenly starts abiding by traffic laws, yet still will not give up. It is a lot of contradictions there. And
the other thing is, as he continues through Olympic Boulevard, along Olympic Boulevard, as you know, he's going to end up into the Fashion District in a very short time and eventually towards Skid Row, where the buildings are still relatively low. But as he gets closer to downtown LA, it's the oldest trick in the book. If you want to lose the police, one of the tactics that they often take is pulling into a parking garage or hiding amongst the buildings, the high-rises in the downtown area here. Not sure what he has in mind or what his plans are, but it is of note that he has indeed turned around, was originally going east away from downtown through East LA, now squarely back in the downtown area now as he makes his way through the Fashion District.
Yeah, Chris, his behavior is certainly odd. You wonder, does he even know he's being followed? He must know, correct?
Oh, yeah. Of course he knows.
Oh, he's aware now. He's definitely got several units with their lights and sirens on right behind him. That serves a couple of purposes as he makes a right turn northbound on Central Avenue, which again will take him actually north and away from the 10 freeway. So that's good news in a sense. California Highway Patrol, as I was about to say, has his lights flashing, and I counted at least 2 units behind him, that black and white, and then an all-white SUV, and a third, so 2 Explorers, and then, so that's your primary unit, your secondary unit, obviously, and then that third unit right behind them. So 3 units all together in pursuit, what is now a slow-speed pursuit, which is, again, a change in how this all started.
And to reiterate, you did say that even though he seems to be abiding by traffic laws, he did blow through some stoplights as he was being pursued, or stop signs as he's being pursued, although he does seem to be stopping at the stoplights.
Stopping at some lights, stopping at some stop signs, and in the last several minutes, as long as we've been on the air, I think he stopped at almost all of the intersections. So you don't see that pure reckless nature, that erratic driving that we sometimes see when somebody wants to get away from the cops and just refuses to pull over. This seems to be a little bit more methodical, a little bit more composed driving. Again, important to note, those windows are heavily tinted and we cannot see whether there is anybody else inside the vehicle. Just because we can't see and can't tell what's going on inside that vehicle doesn't mean law enforcement may have a little bit of a tip-off depending on what information they're working with. It does appear that they have some additional information that we don't have. Don't know what that information is, but they are gathering intelligence despite the fact that this all started as a speeding. It would have been a speeding ticket if he would have just pulled over, as far as we're aware. It was initially wanted for excessive speeds, but obviously refusing to pull over, they have gone into a whole different mode here as this pursuit is now squarely in downtown LA, now on 7th Street at San Pedro.
Right. Well, I guess if he is driving a car that is registered to this, assuming it's a man, a male driver, then that would be quick work if they were able to identify him and contact him, because this hasn't really been going very long.
You're right, and you hate to draw too many conclusions, but if they've been able to contact him, that would lead me to believe there's no indication that this is a stolen vehicle. Apparently, again, we're kind of deducing a little bit here, hate to speculate too much, but it does appear that they've been able to use the plates and whatever other information they have to actually get a hold of the driver, or somebody is communicating or was communicating with the driver. Again, all of that preliminary information. In the meantime, they still have a dangerous situation. It's still a large vehicle that is refusing to pull over, and as quickly as it went from a high-speed pursuit to a slow-speed pursuit, that could all change in a heartbeat. And so you have a number of resources, again, several units on the ground right there, helicopters in the air, and a driver who is refusing to pull over as he makes his way down San Pedro Street.
Right, so San Pedro, we saw him go through 7th, 8th, 9th Street. It looked similar to Skid Row. Did he go through Skid Row or go by Skid Row?
Yeah, we're right by Skid Row. So we did go through the Fashion District. Now we're squarely in Skid Row, which is a large portion of downtown, just east of the high-rises that you're familiar with. As we make our way past 11th Street, you can see an interesting tactic there by the California Highway Patrol. That secondary unit actually kind of meandering alongside, kind of going back and forth there behind that primary unit. You see him not staying right behind the pursuit, but ready to block off some of these intersections if this pursuit comes to an end. If he decides to stop and get out of the vehicle, they can then assume the position and then open their doors and pull out their weapons and then execute a felony stop. That's what we would expect to see if he decides to pull over. But as he rolls through here, kind of a slow roll, now doing 20, 25 miles per hour. Look at that, about 14 miles per hour according to our real-time speed tracker, just on a slow cruise through Skid Row.
Right. You wonder if he's talking to someone on the phone. Hopefully someone has him, his ear or her ear, whoever's driving again, and trying to get this situation resolved. What direction is he heading in now? I see.
That would be the best news. He did turn around. He's actually turned around going back southbound now towards the 10 freeway, still a couple blocks away, but he is getting closer to the 10 freeway. If he makes a right up there, he would be able to angle for the freeway entrance, but there is no entrance right in front of him here. So you can see that's the freeway. He could go under the freeway or decide to make left or right. We'll see.
Is that a police officer stopped over on the side, on the curb?
Yeah, they pulled back almost a couple of car lengths. You see one that was in pursuit right there pulling over. I don't have any information yet that they have canceled this pursuit, but it is interesting to see that one unit pull over. The other ones we'll see if he's going under the freeway, under the 10 freeway, southbound here. Pull back just a little bit once we get to the other side. I just want to see if all of those units have pulled off, or look at that, he's going around that traffic there. So CHP is pulled off. He's going around this traffic over the double yellow lines. He could be fixing for a left turn, but no, he's just trying to get around this traffic. So for some reason or another, California Highway Patrol has pulled back. He is slowly just driving past this traffic, preparing to make a left turn. He's in that left turn lane there, southbound on San Pedro Street at 18th Street. And for one reason or another, California Highway Patrol has pulled back. Not sure if they've officially canceled it or if this is now in tracking mode. I'll try and get some more information from up here. But an interesting development, as it certainly appears that the CHP is pulling back at the least.
Well, maybe the LAPD will be taking over. Any sign of that?
Well, sometimes we've seen them pull back on mental health issues. Like maybe the person is distraught, needs a little space. They're no longer breaking the law, but they're refusing to pull over. We've seen that before, and then they pick it up later, or maybe they go and try to find that person at their home.
Right.
But it's less pressure on the person being pursued. And as you could see, this driver is not reckless, at least right now. Of course, going 73 into 30 is extremely dangerous, but not doing that at this moment.
Yeah, when they calculate the risks in a situation like this, pulling back and canceling the pursuit is not uncommon. It is something that happens quite often. It doesn't always happen right in front of us like this, but sometimes it does, and sometimes they lose him and they just decide to track him down at a later date, at a later place, especially if they have that information. Now, judging from the fact that they've been able to contact him, that does indicate that they probably know where he resides, and maybe they're relying on that information to just lower the temperature, let him get on with his day, and eventually catch up with him at a later point if they decide to pursue this, so to speak. So an interesting development. We'll see if they decide to re-engage or if LAPD manages to or decides to engage him on their own. It's unlikely, but if he decides to ramp things up here and start driving erratically again or speeding down residential streets, that would change everything. Remember, the air resources are still on scene up here. Air 7 HD is following him, and I can guarantee you that the watch commanders back at the CHP division office and the LAPD are keeping an eye on this picture right here.
Yeah, Chris, and I was just going to ask you to pull back to see if there are any patrol cars following a few, car lanes back, but we're not seeing anything. Yeah.
No, they have pulled back completely.
Yeah.
They're back at the 10 freeway as far as I can tell, and he is continuing right down San Pedro, now about 10 blocks south of the 10 at 27th Street.
All right, so as he continued to go down San Pedro Street, we're in the downtown Los Angeles area. Yeah, coming up on East 28th Street. No law enforcement vehicles in sight right now. So it's
LAPD up there?
It's fascinating to watch this happening, and the person is just kind of melded right into traffic. And if you were on that street right now, driving around him, you would have no idea that you're actually right within a few feet of a pursuit going on right now.
Yes, and it looks like we are going to break away from this now since patrol cars, law enforcement are not following this driver. But again, he was, they were trying to attempt to stop him because he was speeding, going 72 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. We don't have any answers for you right now, but if we get some, we will share it with you.
We'll keep you posted if something pops up. In the meantime, Plummer Auditorium is considered an outstanding example of Spanish colonial revival architecture with Italian Renaissance design elements.
But now the Fullerton venue's name is under fire due to its namesake's complicated past. Here's Orange County Bureau reporter Tony Cabrera with the story.
A week and a half ago, 18-year-old Jacqueline Logwood and a friend discovered Plummer Auditorium's namesake, Louis E. Plummer, may have had ties to the KKK.
I was kind of disappointed because I love Plummer Auditorium. I've always been there. My siblings have performed there. I grew up in Fullerton, and it's a very monumental landmark.
The allegations stem from a 1979 dissertation that outlined the KKK in Anaheim in the early 1920s. It's the same reason Fullerton College took down a portrait of Plummer in the library last year.
I had no prior knowledge of who Plummer was, and I figured that many members of my community did not as well.
So Jacqueline started a petition urging Fullerton Joint Union High School District to change the auditorium's name. It now has more than 27,000 signatures, something that blew her away.
I feel like everybody right now is in a progressive state of mind that's like looking for change within the community. How can we improve our community? How can we encourage diversity in our community?
The superintendent says this concern has been raised in the past, but this is the furthest it's ever gone. He welcomes the discussion, acknowledging there are also people